I think this is probably one of the questions that Bang to Write gets asked most. There's a lot of writers out there who feel like they're banging their head against a brick wall because they feel like they're locked out. They feel like no one cares about their writing. No one's heard of them or their writing. They just don't know how to get their writing in front of the people that matter. This may include agents. It may include publishers, producers, filmmakers. It may be readers, viewers, anyone really. There are writers out there just like you feeling pretty hopeless about getting their writing in front of people. And the purpose of this masterclass is to illustrate that actually it's not as difficult as we may think. It's actually a lot to do with our mindset and to do with utilizing various platforms and various ways and various strategies to get our writing in front of people who will buy it, option it, make it, read it, whatever it is that you want. Okay. So before we begin, I just want to draw your attention to these things on the bottom of this slide here. As you may know, I've got a website called bangtowrite.com. It is the most popular screenwriting website in the UK, according to FeedSpot, 9th in the world, which is fantastic. It's also been spotlighted on websites like the Writer's Digest, and also it's been a UK Blog Awards finalist as well. And over there you will find lots of free stuff. If you go up to the free stuff tab at the top of the website, you will find various things that you can download for free, including an online course and a variety of PDF downloads and free ebooks and things like that. So there's plenty of free things over there, as well as advice to help you write your novel or screenplay. Over on teachable.com, that's where I have all the Bang to Write on-demand courses, and that means that if you sign up for any of those courses, you get immediate access to the modules and the materials. And also don't forget to join us online as well. We've got a very engaged Facebook page and we talk about writing daily over there. And also feel free to send me your questions via email. And as you can see, here is my email address right here. Okay, so 10 ways to get your writing read. And it's not going to be as difficult or as expensive or as problematic as you feel. I absolutely guarantee it. Okay. So first things first, let's really look at that question that baffles so many writers, is how do I get read? I get this question very, very regularly over on Bang to Write. In fact, I'd say I probably get it, if we actually worked out how many times I get this in a year, I probably get at least once a day. Okay, now I'm going to assume that your novel or your screenplay is polished and developed and the best it can possibly be. Because basically, great writing is the very least we can do. I mean, we're writers, so that means we have to have developed our work effectively before we try and take it to market, before we try and take it to people that are going to get it produced, made, published, and so on. Okay, it's no good to send out first drafts anymore. It used to be that there were a lot of first drafts in the pile. I don't like to call it the slush pile, because I feel like that's disrespectful. So I call it the spec pile, as in speculative, as in no one has asked for this writing. Okay, there's a difference between commissioned writing and speculative writing. Commissioned means somebody has asked you to write something. So if you're a content writer or a novel writer or a screenwriter, somebody, an industry pro, has asked you to provide writing services. That's commissioned writing. Speculative writing is when we feel the need to write a particular story, whether that's a novel, screenplay, whether that's a short film, a podcast, whatever. Okay. So I call it the spec pile. And it's a fact that the spec pile has increased in ability in the last 10 to 20 years. There aren't as many first drafts in the spec pile as there used to be. That means your competition is a lot higher than it used to be. It used to be that because there were so many first drafts in the pile, then if you developed your work, you were just going to automatically stand out from the crowd. That doesn't happen anymore. Okay. So you really need to develop your work. You really need to ensure that your concepts are road tested, that your characters are fantastic, that your plot is really lean, and you hit all your genre markers and you do everything that you're supposed to do. That's a non-negotiable in the 2020s. Because great writing is the least we can do as writers. Okay, so this means we have to get noticed in other ways. But how do we do that? Okay, well, first things first, we need to create buzz for ourselves and for our work. Again, it used to be that writers could be little wallflowers. They didn't have to necessarily be online or go networking or anything like that. If you had enough talent, if you had enough genius, you could be reclusive. That's not usually the case in the 2020s. We have to do a lot of the legwork ourselves to actually get people interested in us and in our writing. And that's really the first tip that I wanted to give you today, because there's a lot of writers out there who don't want to do those things. And I totally understand why. You know, as a writer, you may feel like an outsider, you may feel like an imposter, you may feel like that's somebody else's job to do that for you, and so on and so forth. But this is the reality. We need to create buzz for ourselves and for our work. But the good news is there's plenty of ways in which to do that. And as a result, that means that we can pick how we do that in a way that feels good for us. So if you really hate meeting people, for example, if you really find it very difficult socially to be in rooms with people that you don't know, to meet people that you don't know, and you feel like you're showing off, or maybe you have added challenges like autism or anxiety and things like that, then the good news is you don't have to do that. You don't have to network in that way in the 2020s. You know, the online space exists, and that can be a really good compromise for those of us who maybe don't have money or have those added challenges that I just mentioned a moment ago. So how do we do this? Well, basically what I'm talking about is building our own career. There is a lot of talk online about breaking in as a writer. I'm not a fan of this phrase because it kind of suggests to me that there's this special, doorway that leads to this special place where the industry is, and everybody who has had a book published or had a film made or a TV series produced, they're all in there with like cake and balloons, and everybody else is kind of on the outside of that door. And that's not my experience. And that's not most professional writers' experience. There is no industry in the classic sense where everybody is and everybody else is on the outside. That's not what happens. And we didn't kind of break in by going through that door. We basically did a lot of writing, worked on our craft, honed our craft, but also created relationships as well. So I prefer the phrase creating our career rather than breaking in. And once you actually get away from the idea of breaking in, because I remember feeling that way myself back in the day, but once you actually kind of get rid of that notion of breaking in and focus instead on building your career step by step by step, suddenly it feels like you're making progress. Suddenly it feels like you're not locked out or on the outside and everybody else is kind of, with their friends and their, industry contacts, and you're, left out in the cold. So that's another kind of mindset change that we can make in order to get our writing read and to build our careers and, just feel like we're part of something rather than locked out. But of course, there are other practical things that we can do beyond mindset that actually helps us create that buzz, get our writing read, and establish and build that career that I've been talking about here. So, how to get your work read? Let's talk first about what I call the traditional approach. A lot of writers think this is the only approach. So I want to flag this one up first to show you that, yes, this is the traditional approach. This is something that we all do, that we probably all kind of understand, but equally, there's plenty more ways of doing it on top of that. So what is the traditional approach? Well, put simply, we basically research and identify agents, publishers, producers, whoever it is that we want to work with. We need to go out there and find out who is doing what. And this is very often the first hurdle that writers fall down on, because they just open a writers and artists yearbook, or they Google online, they find random agents, random publishers, random producers and filmmakers, and make submissions to them. And they're basically throwing spaghetti at the wall because they're not really understanding whether these people are the best industry pros for them. And so as a result, they end up very despondent because they don't necessarily get the response they want. So this is why I always talk about strategy over spaghetti. Okay. So in other words, you need to research and identify the right agents, the right publishers, the right producers, the right filmmakers for you. I know that sounds obvious because it absolutely is obvious. And yet you'd be surprised by how many writers just do this scattergun approach, this spaghetti approach, thinking that that will take them forwards. And you know what? Every now and again, it does work. But it's by accident rather than design. And as a result, it's very hard to replicate. And that's one of the reasons that I set up one of my premium courses over on Teachable, Submission Secrets, because I talk a lot about submissions, obviously, in that course, and how spaghetti doesn't work and what works instead. But ultimately, what it boils down to is researching and identifying those people that would work with you for good reasons, rather than just randomly approaching random people. And obviously, Submission Secrets goes into a lot more detail over the various strategies and how we can make them work for us. Number 2, then, I call this the coffee approach. And I found this really super effective when I was setting up setting up as both a writer and then as Bang to Write. Okay, so basically all you do is you ask people you identify and admire for coffee. That is literally it. And basically what happens in this kind of scenario is you are creating relationships with people and chatting to people. You're not sitting down with them to say, read my script, read my novel. You are literally creating a relationship with that person. Okay. And coffee is on you. If those people drink alcohol, then you can take them for a pint, or you can take them for tea, or you can take them for cake, whatever works. for you and that other person. Just do remember that not everybody drinks alcohol for both personal and religious reasons and cultural reasons. So a lot of people say to me, just asking people for coffee, how's that going to take me forward? And the answer is relationships always take you forward. They might not pay off straight away, but they always help. These days, in the post-COVID era, there's such a thing as Zoom coffees now. There are people who just Zoom with other people, having a coffee to have a chat. And I love that. And I've taken to doing Zoom coffees from time to time. And certainly if you wanted to email me and ask me for a Zoom coffee, or ask me for a coffee in real life, and I happen to live near you, or I am in London or whatever, I'm always delighted to meet people. So if you can meet people, if you don't have those added challenges that I talked about earlier, like having no money or anxiety and things like that. But even if you do have anxiety, I have anxiety, and meeting people is hard for me. A lot of people don't realize that. They think that I am very confident, which I am, but confident people can also have anxiety. So it's hard for me to meet people. But somebody recommended this approach to me, and I decided, okay, I'm going to do that. I didn't have a lot of money at the time. I was a single mother. But, you know, every month I asked somebody for coffee, a producer, a publisher, an agent. And yes, some people turned me down. Some people ignored me, but a surprising amount of people said yes. And so with that in mind, why not give it a try yourself? Because relationships always take you forwards. The blogtastic approach. Now, obviously, I do this one as well. I ask industry pros if I can interview them, and I publish the results on the blog. I've been able to meet lots and lots of people that I really admire by interviewing them for Bang to Write. I've also written blogs from people that I've met at events like the Harrogate Crime Writing Festival, or Exeter Phoenix down here in Devon, or London Screenwriters Festival. Whenever I meet an industry pro, I always ask them if they would like to be interviewed on Bang to Write, and 9 times out of 10 they say yes. Sometimes they don't want to be interviewed, sometimes they want to write their own guest post. That's okay too. You know, basically utilizing your blog to meet people is a very, very effective way, and it also gives you a structure and a reason to contact them that doesn't seem desperate or weird, because you're effectively helping them out, and as a result you're creating that relationship with them again. And relationships always take you forward, they always help you out, they always pay off somewhere. Okay, and I know what you're thinking right now. Oh, it's okay for you. Bang to Write's a really big blog. It gets thousands of hits a month. Mine only gets a couple of hundred. Don't worry about this, okay? PR is always good. So that means that there are a lot of industry pros out there who don't care what your hit rate is. In fact, I can't think of the last time an industry pro asked me what the hit rate was on Bang to Write. They don't care. So with that in mind, why can't you do the same? No one, when I started out, asked me if Bang to Write had loads of hits. They just didn't. And in its early days, in its infancy, Bang to Write was, you know, didn't have that many hits. It didn't even look that good, to be honest. It didn't have any pictures on there. I was on platforms like AOL Hometown, which is long gone, and and Blogger before it is in the incarnation that it is now. You know, yes, it looks very slick and professional and kind of official now, but it didn't always. And yet people still wanted to be interviewed by me. So instead of thinking, well, why would anybody want to be interviewed by me? Think, why not? why wouldn't they want to be interviewed by you, especially if you can come up with a really great angle for their interview and, you know, help them get the word out about their books or about their TV show or about their movie and so on and so forth. So do bear in mind the idea of having a blog and interviewing industry pros, because it can be a really, really effective way of solidifying your position in the industry, basically. The events approach, number 4. So in other words, you're networking in real life, or you're doing it virtually on social media, you know, via the platform of your choice, whether that's Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Twitter, aka X, you know, wherever, TikTok, wherever is your preferred platform, utilize it strategically to meet people. Okay, follow people that interest you, get involved in their discussions. Again, don't just crash into threads and discussions saying read my script or read my novel. Don't do any of that. Okay, get involved with them, be involved in discussions with them, sign up for Zoom events and discussions. You know, there's so many in the 2020s. You know, it used to be that networking in real life was really, really, really important. You couldn't do without it. And whilst that's still the case, you know, meeting in real life can have the edge, because people do forget faces, they do forget names on screens, things like that, whereas they don't tend to forget people that they've met in actual meet space. But if you can't do that because you've got a disability or you're neurodivergent or you've got no money, then virtually can be very, very effective. I can prove that. You know, I was a single mother. I didn't have much money, didn't have any childcare. So I did a lot of my networking virtually, building it up piece by piece by piece. And it can be very, very effective. It's just not fast. You know, this is the key with a lot of writers, is realizing, again, another mindset change here is that things aren't necessarily going to pay off immediately. We're building that career, remember? So that means you need to build it piece by piece by piece and accept that this is the long game. It's not a short-term thing. Number 5, do it yourself. I love the DIY method because it means that we get to pick ourselves. I always talk about this on Bang to Write, this notion that don't wait to be picked. Pick yourself. Choose your own path. And there's so many ways that we can do this now. Self-publishing is the obvious one. I love self-publishing. I've actually been published by pretty much every type of publisher now, from self-publishing through to the big 5 and everything in between. So micro presses, digital firsts, indie publishers. You know, I've been published by them all now, but I've also self-published as well. And blogging is a form of self-publishing too, you know. So self-publishing can be really, really effective. I'm what's known as a hybrid author. So in other words, I'm self-published, but I'm also published by all the different types of publisher on top of that as well. So, you know, and I did that on purpose. I didn't sit at home thinking, oh, I need to wait for a publisher or an agent to pick me. I picked myself. And that's, again, as a mindset change, can really take you from one place, you know, that feeling of being locked out, into this is a no-brainer. I am basically someone who will do my own thing. I'm an autonomous writer. I will make my own path. And as a result, I will suck in to my sphere of influence agents, publishers, producers, you name it. I mean, 20 years into my writing journey, I can pretty much get in contact with whoever I like if I want to. And you can do the same too. I didn't start in a place that was very privileged. remember. I was a teenage single mother. I had no money. I had so little money. In fact, I had to make a choice between having the lights on or the TV on. And yet blogging, self-publishing, virtual networking, they changed my life and solidified me as an industry pro. You can do the same. Another thing that you can think about is freelance writing. I did a lot of this in my early days. Freelance writing is sometimes referred to as content writing. And again, setting yourself up as somebody who writes stuff about stuff. You know, sometimes writers say to me, oh, it's impossible to get paid for writing. But that's never been my experience. It's hard to get paid for writing things you like and want to personally write. Yes, that is hard. But getting paid for writing is not hard as long as you write what they want you to write. So, you know, an example of content writing would be writing blogs for money, writing the backs of cereal packets, writing website content, writing prospectuses for universities and courses and things like that, writing sales pages, writing adverts and things like that. You know, there's lots and lots of work out there in content writing, and doing lots and lots of research into content writing can help you. Over on bangtowrite.com, there are a lot of articles about this. So if you search make money online, Bang to Write, you will find articles about this very topic. So you can also monetize your writing as well, utilizing all the various sites that are out there. So Patreon, Wattpad, Inktip, the Blacklist, you know, there's lots and lots of sites out there. Some are more effective than others. Doing lots of research into these websites that say that they will pay you for writing is a good place to start if you want to get your work read. If you want to create buzz for yourself and you want to create your career, then this can be a very, very effective way of doing that. And there's more and more subscription sites now. There's even subscriptions on social media as well that you can do. You know, Instagram and places like that will you know, Facebook Reels and so on will actually people can actually pay for that kind of content now. So researching, freelance writing, content writing, all the variety. I mean, this is just 4 places where you can create buzz or get paid for writing. There's loads more in the 2020s. Okay, winning awards and prizes are a great way of creating buzz for yourself and creating you know, your career. So winning awards and prizes, you know, getting in short story anthologies, winning a screenwriting competition, placing highly in lots of screenwriting competitions in the same year, things like that. Winning a novel writing prize, you know, any kind of, you know, buzz for your work. You know, writing a screenplay that wins a film festival prize, you know, any of this can be very effective. The downside of winning, you know, going for awards, winning prizes, trying to get in anthologies, that kind of thing, is that your competition is exceptionally high. You know, after the traditional approach, as I call it, probably entering contests and schemes and initiatives is probably the second highest one in terms of numbers. So you can be a really good writer as well and never ever place in these contests. I don't think I've ever placed highly in a contest ever, and yet I'm still a professional writer. So if you have very delicate self-esteem, you may not want to go down the contest route, because it may leave you feeling very despondent if you don't place or win. So only do that, I think, if you have a strategy and, you know, for example, entering a bunch of contests in the same year, placing highly in all of them. That's when agents become interested. It's rare for agents to be interested in just one win or one placing. as well. So do bear all of that in mind. Now, selling lots of units of your thing that you've made yourself, that is something that agents are very interested in. So say you've self-published a book and you've sold 20,000 units in a year. Now you're interesting to an agent. Publishers may even be interested as well, because sometimes a self-published book will get picked up by a publisher, but it has to have sold loads of units. We're talking thousands, not hundreds. Okay, so selling lots of units can be very effective. Equally, if you've made a film and it ends, you sell it to a streamer like Amazon Prime and it gets downloaded a significant amount of times, again, an agent will be interested, other producers will be interested. Selling lots of stuff is always going to be interesting to industry pros, because the industry is about money. A lot of writers go, oh, it should be only about the story. And yeah, it should definitely be about the story. But this is known as show business. So as a result, if you aren't able to sell stuff, then there is no need for the producer or the publisher or the agent to pick you up, is there? So, but if you can prove that you've sold lots and lots of units of your film or your book or your whatever, that's when they get interested, because it's always about the money. Okay, basically what I'm talking about is demonstrating demand and that you've got an audience already. Agents in particular love autonomous writers. They love the writers who get on and do their own thing. And we're able to do that more and more in the 2020s. So, and we are expected to do that as well. It's a double-edged sword, definitely. But the more you understand about your own industry, the more you understand about things like marketing, the more you understand about DIY routes to success, the more likely you're going to have success. That's the reality in the 2020s. Number 6, become an authority. So in other words, I'm talking about showcasing your knowledge, your POV, your writer's voice, your whatever. Okay. And doing this online can be very, very effective. I did this with Bang to Write. I knew I had good craft skills. I also understood over time that actually I have an innate kind of tendency to look at the evidence and break down market trends and target audience, and there's multiple strings to my bow. I'm good at marketing, I'm good at craft, I'm good at business, I'm good at things like breaking down concepts to do with things like diversity, gender, race, cultural appropriation, all of these very tough things, these big concepts that we're talking about a lot in the 2020s. Authenticity is another one. I'm good at breaking down these very highfalutin concepts into ways that, much more manageable chunks that writers can understand. So as a result, I then get hired by industry pros to describe these things to their production companies or to their workers, to their whatevers, and I was able to do that and create buzz for myself that way. It also meant that I was commissioned to write the Thriller Screenplays book that has been out for 10 years now and has just been published in its 2nd edition, to include things like TV pilots and transmedia and loads more besides, film budgets, things like that. So if you can become an authority, especially online or by writing a non-fiction book or by doing talks or whatever, if you can do something to do with the industry like that, then again, you can actually create that career for yourself and actually be that go-to person that the industry is wants to have in their midst, wants to have, hire you to do things, and like talks and workshops and so on and so forth. So becoming an authority can be very, very effective, because generally what happens, I find, is that a production company or a publisher or an agent or whatever will hire me to do something because I am an authority on craft, diversity, gender, whatever. And then when I'm talking to those people about this topic, they'll say, do you have anything that I can read that you're working on at the moment? So being in that space can be very, very effective. Social media following. Okay, so if you create a very, very large following for yourself, you can get automatic buzz. Publishers, agents, producers, they're always interested in a writer who has a lot of followers. That doesn't mean buy followers. Never, ever buy followers. It's very, very obvious when people do buy followers, because what happens is they end up with like 1 million followers because they've spent loads and loads of money buying like dead accounts. And there's no engagement with the account because those followers are fake. And it's very, very obvious to anyone who, if you've bought followers, so never, ever buy them. The other end of the scale is you don't necessarily have a huge amount of followers, but they're very, very engaged with you. Okay, now Bang to Write, a lot of writers say to me, oh, Bang to Write's really massive. It's actually not a massive platform. I've probably got, across all my platforms, in terms of actual followers, I'm probably looking at about 30 or 40,000 followers across all of my platforms. Some of my platforms only have like 800 people in it. Some of them have like 20, like over on Twitter or X, I've got 18,000 over there. But that's not what's important. 40,000 might seem like a lot to you, but it's actually not. I actually qualify as what's known in marketing circles as being a micro influencer. So 40,000 people is not a lot in the scheme of things. However, my online reach is typically between 250,000 views across all platforms to 1 million. So from that 40,000 people, I can potentially influence up to 1 million people. That's a big deal. So if you can do that, great. But let's say you can't. Okay, let's say 40,000 is completely out of your reach. It's better to have 500 really engaged followers versus several thousand who aren't engaged. Okay, and the average industry pro knows that. If they are involved in marketing, if they're involved in business, they know that. So if you can demonstrate that whatever following you've got is engaged, they're going to be interested. So bear that in mind. Okay, be a helper. Okay, so in other words, be that person who goes out of their way to help other people. Okay, now I'm not saying sell your soul to help other people. There was a period in my life where I was too helpful online. I was literally waking up in the middle of the night, answering emails, answering tweets, answering Facebook threads and so on and so forth, because I was so petrified of not being a helper. For a lot of people, especially women, we were taught that our worth is connected to how much we help other people. So I want to flag that up and say, stay away from that. Don't help people to the detriment of yourself. Okay, make sure you have boundaries. Make sure that you don't let people take the mickey out of you and take up all your time. But as long as you're doing that, helping others can only be good. Okay, if you become the person who helps others, who collaborates with others, you will create contacts. And remember, creating contacts is creating relationships, and relationships always take you forward. Number 9, create a lead magnet. That's not something that you stick on the fridge. It's when you give away a freebie to get people to sign up to your newsletter. Okay, newsletters can be very, very effective. Chances are you're here right now because you have engaged with a Bang to Write freebie of some kind. Okay, you've signed up for the free course, The Foundations of Writing Craft, over on Teachable, maybe, or maybe you read my free ebook, How Not to Write Female Characters, or maybe you downloaded one of the many PDF downloads on the PDF gallery over on the Bang to Write main site, or maybe you joined a free Zoom at another time, or so, you know, I give away a lot for free on Bang to Write. Okay, you don't have to give away as much as me. You know, I do this because Bang to Write is my business, and it's a way of getting clients as well as readers. So if you're not if you're not creating a business in the same way as me, you do not have to have such a huge array of free products. So I don't want you thinking that you do. Okay. Also, I didn't create all those free products at once. You know, I've been in the industry now for 20 years, and I've been doing the online kind of space a lot in the last 10 years in particular. So as a result, I've created a vast array of free things, because one of my mottos is no Bang to Writer left behind. You know, I remember what it was like to be completely poor, to have no money, to feel locked out. And so as a result, I want to make sure that any, you know, single mother or single parent, Bang to Writers or disabled writers, or writers who are marginalized in any other way, are included. It's very important to me that I do that. But again, it's a business. Now, as a writer, if you want to get your writing in front of people and you want to create a lead magnet in that way, then giving away a free ebook of your short stories or a novel. For me personally, short stories are the most effective, especially a very short freebie, because you don't want to spend too long on your lead magnet, but you also want to give people a flavor of your writing. And I did this with my short story anthology, The Lynmouth Stories. You can download this via my Lucy V. Hay author website, or you can search for it on Amazon and you can download it for free from there as well. It's just 3 short stories. It's just a coffee break read. It'll take 15-20 minutes to read, but I selected 3 short stories that I've written before that I felt demonstrated my writing style, my writer's voice, my writing craft, whatever. And it's so fast to read. And it means that people are going to download the book and probably start reading it immediately. One of the problems with giving away a very long lead magnet is that people download them and then they put them in a graveyard folder on their Kindle, and they don't get round to reading it because they don't necessarily value it because it's free. You know, people tend to value things that they paid for more. So try not to make your lead magnet too long. Short stories are perfect. But equally, you know, any kind of book that's about somewhere between 5,000 words and 15,000 words is about right. Okay. And if you want to see how I've done it, then download the Lynmouth Stories, see how it works. Okay. But, you know, obviously you don't have to give away a free ebook if you don't want to. Obviously, jokes and memes, infographics, reports, concept art, checklist, worksheets, cheat sheets, any of those things work really, really well as a lead magnet. And it persuades people to sign up to your newsletter, or it persuades them to do something else, to take some other action. I've seen writers do things like, if you liked this, please give me a review on Amazon, or a rating on Amazon, a star rating. If you liked this, please review me on Facebook. If you liked this, please come and follow me over on Instagram. Just give them a call to action. And if the person likes your thing, then they'll do it. Finally, number 10, querying. Okay. A lot of writers say to me, I'm just absolutely locked out, because everywhere I go, every website I look at, every listing I see in the Writers and Artists Yearbook, it says no unsolicited material. And what does that actually mean? Well, it means don't send us stuff we haven't asked for. That's all no unsolicited material means. That's literally it. Okay, they haven't asked for your writing, so don't send it. So what do? We get them to ask for it. Okay, now this is different to the traditional approach of number 1. All right. You do not send anything to the agent, the producer, the publisher when you're querying, except for the email itself. That's it. Okay. You send a short query email, 2 to 3 lines maximum. That's what querying is. You do not send attachments. You do not send links to your website. You don't set, or your film on Vimeo, or your book on Amazon Prime, or anything like that. You just send them a short query email asking them if they would care to read your script or your novel. That is it. No attachments. Okay, and there's plenty of querying advice on bang2write.com. Again, if you Google querying advice and Bang to Write, it will take you to a bunch of articles over there about how to query and what you should put in your querying email. And again, this is covered as well in mega detail by Submissions Secrets, the Teachable course over on Bang2Write's Teachable site. But okay, I've given you 10 ways to get your writing read, but that's not all of them. Okay, school visits and teaching resource packs can be very effective in reaching new readers. It's generally something that's better for writers of children's books and books for teenagers, young adults, but also can be effective for people who have made short films that have issues in that can be discussed with the children, but obviously it needs to be appropriate for the age groups that you are working with. Also, so school visits can be done by anyone. Teaching resource packs, I would only encourage those of us who have teaching experience to do this. If you've trained as a teacher, then you will know what goes into teaching resource packs and how it relates to the curriculum and how it relates to various age groups and the various classes or year groups that the kids are in, that kind of thing. Even though most of us went to school, in comparison to those of us who are home educated, those of us who went to school and we're, even 10 years or even 5 years after leaving school, everything has changed. Okay, so if you're a 45-year-old person and thinks that you know how schools work, you don't. You absolutely do not. Just because you went to school doesn't mean you know how schools work now. Education is highly politicized. So unless you have teacher training, unless you have teaching experience, unless you keep your hand in and make sure you go to various training webinars and talk to teachers regularly and do your research in mega detail, don't bother writing teaching resource packs, is my advice. Okay, because everything changes so quickly. It's the case in the UK, it's the case in the USA, it's probably the case in Europe. You know, teaching is politicized, so that means it changes every 5 minutes. So unless you have a lot of experience of teaching and understanding how resource packs work that is current and relevant, you may be wasting your time creating teaching resource packs. Okay, but good news is school visits are something that a lot of schools like to encourage, because they like to have creatives come in and read from their books or show their short films and stuff, as long as it's appropriate for the age group. Another one is readings in libraries and bookshops. Generally speaking, when it comes to bookshops, the chains aren't that effective. They tend to ignore you. So unless you have a specific contact at, say, Waterstones or WH Smith, then there's a strong chance the chains aren't going to ask you to come in. It's much, much better for writers to target indie bookshops. So if you have a local bookshop in your town, go and make friends with the person who owns it. Okay, and they're much, much more likely to ask you in then for talks, for readings, things like that. Equally, go to your local library and make friends with the librarian, and then you're much, much more likely to be asked in. You know, when I was preparing this masterclass, I spoke to a lot of librarians and a lot of indie bookshop people, and they said, we only ever hear from writers when they want something. Okay, and again, creating that relationship with booksellers, with librarians, that means they're going to come to you and ask you to do things and ask, you know, and help you create buzz about yourself, like doing book signings and readings and stuff like that. They're going to want to help you. Relationships always take you forward. Okay, so don't be the writer that only ever approaches librarians and bookshops because you want something. Help them, they will help you. Facebook ads and boosts leading to your sites can be very, very effective. There's a lot of people out there that aren't really sure how Facebook ads work, and that's why I created another Bang to Write teachable course called Online Confidential, where I cover things like Facebook ads and boosts, because a lot of people have a lot of misconceptions about how advertising online works. They think that their phone is listening to them, and they think that various things are happening which aren't. As soon as you go into the Facebook ads kind of dashboard, you'll see how it works, and actually kind of familiarizing yourself with how Facebook advertising works and how targeted ads work on social media will not only put your mind at rest about your phone listening to you and things like that, which has been debunked by scientists over and over again, because they don't need to talk to, they don't need to eavesdrop on you. You know, phones, they talk to each other. The way that the Facebook algorithm is set up is so that people actually opt into the adverts. You know, they make various you know, they actually tell Facebook what they like, for example. So you can show your advert to people who liked Killing Eve, or who liked The Hunger Games, or who liked Alien, you know, or who likes assassin movies. You know, it can be that targeted, because people are literally telling Facebook via liking various pages, via writing various keywords on the software in Facebook. They don't need to listen to you, because basically all the people have already told Facebook all the things that they're interested in by writing stuff on Facebook, by having various videos on there saying that they like certain things, by liking various pages. And so as a result, you can then use Facebook's advertising algorithm to target those people as specifically as that. So say your book is like The Hunger Games, you can write your advert and then just select show to people who like The Hunger Games. Boom, it's there. Okay, but don't take my word for it. Go into the Facebook dashboard, look in the ads manager. It's on your homepage. If you scroll down, you'll find it. Alternatively, there are various apps you can use to access Facebook ads as well. So you can go into the Play Store or the Apple Store and find these apps as well. So Facebook ads leading to your blog, leading to your book on Amazon, leading to your film on Amazon Prime, and so on and so forth, or your podcast, things like that. They can be very, very effective. And also cheap as well. A lot of people imagine that advertising on Facebook costs a lot of money. It doesn't. It actually can cost as little as £1 a day, actually. So if you have a little money and you want to circumvent social media and find the people that really matter to you, then you can do that for as little as £1 a day. Whether it's effective will depend on how you write your ad. You know, there is a certain way of doing it as well. But again, there's lots of courses out there where you can actually learn how to write Facebook ads. I haven't written one. Maybe I will in the future. But Bryan Cohen, Bryan is spelled Bryan, and Cohen is spelled Cohen. He has an Amazon ads challenge that a lot of the Bang2 writers really like, because Amazon has ads as well. And basically, if you learn Amazon ads, you can learn Facebook ads and vice versa. Okay. Film nights and holding your own networking event can be, again, really, really effective in creating buzz for yourself and ensuring that people actually know what you're doing. So that's great. So yeah, in terms of film nights, I've been to film nights at various art centres like the Exeter Phoenix or the Watershed in Bristol, for example. I've also been to networking events in pubs and in theatres and so on. You know, I mean, you can hold a networking event or a film night anywhere you like, including online now. There are a lot of Zoom events and Facebook events and things like that that can be very, very effective as long as you do them properly. Okay. You may remember that I did a second edition of my thriller screenplays book in 2023. And I had a Facebook event where I had a variety of adverts where not adverts, where I was talking a variety of videos, I should say, where I'm talking to other industry pros about what makes the thriller. Okay, I talked to Linda Aronson, who is known for non-linearity. I talked to Sally Abbott, who writes crime thrillers for Vera on ITV here in the UK, and a variety of others, including Death in Paradise. And I also talked to Bob Symes, who has written a variety of thrillers, including one of my favorites, the cult thriller Extracurricular Activities. And I talked to each of them for about 40 minutes on Zoom, and I basically, on the day that my thriller screenplay second edition came out, I uploaded these 3 interviews that I did with them in advance on an event page on Facebook. I also talked to various writers about thrillers and their favorite thrillers on the page. I also talked about various craft elements to do with thrillers. I did a Facebook Live where I talked about thrillers as well. And I created buzz for my book on the day it came out that way. And it was very, very effective, very effective. And you can do the same, and you can do it all virtually. And I did the vast majority of that work in advance. So I didn't have to spend the entire day sitting at the computer, doing interviews, talking to writers and so on and so forth. I set up my event I think it was about 3 weeks in advance. And I did loads of discussions running up, in a piece by piece basis. And then I also recorded those 3 Zooms on 3 separate occasions, but uploaded them all on publication day. And as a result, people knew about my book. And it was very, very effective. And you can do something similar. And you don't have to spend lots of money to do it. I didn't spend any money doing that. And yet loads of people heard about my second edition of my thriller screenplay. It sold extremely well in that first quarter. Posters in library, cafes, and community boards, again, can be very effective. A lot of writers totally underestimate their locality. Okay, being the writer in a small town, for example, or in a suburb, being known as the writer of that area can be really, really effective. So putting up a poster of your book saying it's written here in this place by you, the writer, that can be really effective in creating buzz for yourself, because other local people are nearly always impressed by writers. Which seems hard to believe, because, we go online and nobody seems to care about our writing, or maybe our books aren't selling on Kindle, or maybe we can't get a meeting with a producer or whatever. But generally speaking, local people, if they find a local writer in their midst, they're very impressed by them. They want to know what you're working on. So by creating a poster and putting it in a library, putting it in a cafe, putting it on a community board and saying, I'm a local writer, I wrote these books in this, in this town, or I am writing screenplays, or I'm doing whatever. Here's my Facebook page, here's my Instagram, here's my whatever. You will find local people that way, and they will come and follow you. And you can create relationships with them. The librarian, the booksellers, in the area, they'll get in contact with you. Other people who like reading or like watching TV will get in contact with you. They will. I discovered recently that my next door neighbor has been following Bang to Write for about 2 years. I had no knowledge of this. Because she hadn't actually mentioned it, but she had started talking to me by the bins. And I thought, oh, what a nice lady. And then last week she started talking about something that I'd written on Bang to Write, and I was like, oh, I didn't realize you followed me. And she said, oh yeah, I've been following you for years, and I've been recommending your books to everyone. There you go. There you go. So even if they don't get in contact with you, the fact that they know you means they might recommend you. That's got to be a good thing. Again, those relationships take you forward. Podcasting is another one. Podcasts are big in the 2020s. People love podcasts. And what I love about podcasts is you don't actually have to get dressed up. You don't have to put makeup on. You don't have to do your hair. You can do them in your pajamas, that kind of thing. Okay. And podcasts are great for that. So if you have mental health problems or anxiety, or you don't like video for whatever reason, podcasts can be great, and people can get millions and millions of listens on podcasts as well, and that has to be a good thing. I know a lot of podcasters. I'm not actually a podcaster. I am somebody who always means to set up a podcast, but I've not got round to it, and I don't think I really need to, because I've got everything else covered. But if you don't want to set up a blog, if you don't want to have a YouTube channel, if you don't want to do Instagram reels, and you don't want to do Facebook lives and all of that kind of stuff, then podcasts can be really, really effective. Really effective. I mean, I know one best-selling author who has their own podcast, and they've had loads and loads of commissions because of their podcast, because people love the podcast and they can demonstrate that they are relevant and interesting and have an audience. I know another podcaster who got a book deal based on their podcasts. I know another podcaster who did a narrative podcast rather than, say, a true crime one or a folklore one or one that's nonfiction. And they did a narrative podcast, and now they've been commissioned to write a screenplay for a TV pilot version. So podcasts can really take you forwards, provided you can get the listens. So make sure you do your research. Okay. Hard copy fanzines. It's hard to believe in the 2020s, but fanzines are still a thing, and they're usually hard copy. Okay. So in other words, alternative views of stuff is always effective. You know, I actually used to write for like feminist fanzines and rock music fanzines in the 1990s, and I actually thought they'd disappeared because I don't have much of an alternative life these days. I'm very kind of, you know, a mum working out of her kitchen, so I don't go to like alternative clubs and alternative shops like I used to. However, there is still an alternative scene, you know, tattooists, record shops, LGBTQ organizations and shops often still stock fanzines about various topics. So if you have strong opinions about politics, about social identities, marginalized people, things like that, if you've got strong opinions and you have the ability to print your own hard copy fanzines, or you have a small amount of money to be able to do that, then, or you want to start your own Kickstarter or Indiegogo campaign to have your own little fanzine thing going, you know, why not? You can do that. You know, you can get them to be stocked in various alternative places, or in various places like tourist information boards and things like that. You know, why not? Why not? The world is literally your oyster, and you can get your work in front of the people that matter. So if you have any other ideas for sharing, I gave you 10, and then I've got 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 17. So I promised you 10, I gave you 17 different ways you can get your writing in front of the people that matter and build your career and create buzz for yourself. But if you've got any others that are occurring to you, maybe something has worked for you really unexpectedly, then by all means drop in the comments underneath this video, because I'd love to hear your ideas and what's worked for you. Okay, so that was 10 ways to get your writing read. Don't forget to join us over on Teachable. There's a free course for you over there, as I mentioned, called the Foundations of Writing Craft. Over on the Bang to Write main site, there's a stack of advice. I mean, there's like 2,000 articles there or thereabouts now, with plenty of information there, including lots of guest posts by people who've done various things, and can give you advice about it. There's also the free stuff tab as well, which I've mentioned. You can send me an email whenever you like, or a PM or a DM on social media. I'm always interested to hear from the Bang to Writers. And do join us on the Facebook page, because as mentioned, we have a lot of really lively discussion over there. And I'd love to hear from you. So please go forth, create those relationships, change that mindset, get your writing in front of people by hook or by crook, and do it in a way that works for you. Make it fun for you, and people will be sucked into your sphere of influence because they can't resist it. Anyone who's doing something because they love it, immediately we're interested. But when we're desperate, when we're weird, when we're dropping links endlessly, spamming people on social media, you know, just dropping links and running and saying, please buy my book, please read my book, please do this, please do that, that stinks of desperation, and that repels people. So it's all about not being desperate and ensuring that we can do what's fun for us, and that will attract people. Marketers call it attraction marketing, and it absolutely 100% works. And I can tell you that because, like you, I was locked out. I had no money. I had lots of problems. I had no childcare. Everything was against me. The odds of me making it in the industry was almost zero. But you're here now because I was able to overcome those odds through the strategies and the things that I've described in this masterclass. It shouldn't be so hard. I get it. It shouldn't be so hard to get noticed. It's unfortunate, but it is the way it is. We can fight that and lose, or we can accept what we can't change, and we can find the thing that will open the door for us in helping us create our career. Good luck.